Welcome to Sources Tell Jeff Passan. I am Jeff Passan, and I have been accused at times of being someone who loves the Los Angeles Dodgers, and I'm not really sure that's fair. I have written a lot about the Dodgers because they are the most interesting team in baseball, and I like interesting things. And they are also the most hated team and the most polarizing team and the team that gets talked about more than anybody. And of the latter, I am guilty. But the Dodgers are not baseball. There are other teams, there are other storylines, there are other really interesting things that are going to happen over the next 7 weeks leading up to the first postseason game, September 29th. And you know what? That's what we're going to talk about today. This is a Dodger-free show. I am going to do my best not to slip, and if I happen to mention the Dodgers in any way, shape, or form, I'm going to do my best not to slip, and if I happen to mention the Dodgers in any way, shape, or form, our Chief Baseball Officer, Richard Staff, will be here to reprimand me. And honestly, I think I'm going to do well. There are 29 other teams. There are 754 other players. There are thousands of other statistics. There are infinite potential accomplishments. And we're going to start with perhaps the best one of all. Because right now, Yordan Alvarez, the Houston Astros' otherworldly designated hitter / outfielder, is now not just the owner of the American League Triple Crown, but he also has the Triple Slash Crown. And to see this in a landscape like baseball has in 2026 is absolutely incredible. Right now, Yordan Alvarez is batting .322. There is one other player in the American League, Chandler Simpson, who has a batting average over 300. So he's got a pretty commanding lead there. In home runs, 35 for Yordan Alvarez. Junior Caminero has 33. Ben Rice has 32. Not comfortable, but still in the lead. And he is there in runs batted in as well with 86. Dylan Dingler has 80. Ben Rice and Pete Alonso have 75. The last Triple Crown winner was Miguel Cabrera in 2012. Was the first time in 45 years. And I remember back in 2012 thinking, even despite Miguel Cabrera's Triple Crown, that Mike Trout was the MVP. And in looking back, I think I might have been wrong at that. Because let's look at the date right now. It's August 11th. And back on August 11th, 2012, Miguel Cabrera was 22 points behind Mike Trout, who was a rookie that year in batting average, 344 to 322. He was tied for fourth in home runs with 29 behind Josh Hamilton, Adam Dunn, Curtis Granderson, and he was on top with 96 runs batted in, tied with Josh Hamilton. The rest of the way, Miguel Cabrera over his last 48 games hit 351, 415, 678. Mike Trout, 289, 386, 495, only 9 home runs in those last 48 games. Cabrera, in the meantime, second in average, third in homers, first among all players in RBIs. And what's wild to me is the wins above replacement numbers. You go and look back, and Mike Trout was at 10.1 WAR that year. Miguel Cabrera at 7.3. Not just Fangraphs, but Baseball Reference both had 5 players ahead of a Triple Crown season. And Yordan Alvarez is having the kind of season that you dream of, the kind of season that can drag a team to the postseason. And, the craziest part of all of this, and just as a show of good faith, to point out that not everything they do is right, on August 1st, 2016, 6 weeks after he was signed as an amateur, Yordan Alvarez was traded to the Houston Astros by
wait a minute. Listen, you're starting to verge on sacrilege here, and I know you don't mean to verge, but you're not allowed to mention that team, not allowed to say what they do, and Look, I'm
But he
here to
got
protect
traded
you.
there, man.
I'm
He
here
got
to
traded.
protect you. Your greatest enemy is yourself, and I am here to just keep you shielded from that. So, you know what? That was a good segment. Let's move on. Let's not talk about the blue and white.
All right. All right. Fair enough. We mentioned Aaron Judge. He has been out since the end of May with a stress fracture in his right first rib. And Aaron Judge has declared, and this is a direct quote, "I'll be back this season." Now, Aaron Judge hasn't even started swinging a bat yet. And we have to understand where the first right rib is. It's up pretty high here, and it's quite important to the swing. When it goes down during the swing, it allows the scapula and it allows the clavicle to clear. Uh, you can't swing unless that thing is right. And Aaron Judge has been back with light activities and conditioning and all the sorts of things that you really want to hear as a fan, but also don't, because it means the guy is not close to being back from what is ailing him at this point. And here's the reality: the Yankees need Aaron Judge. I'm not telling you anything that's shocking here, but let's look at some of the numbers that the Yankees have since Aaron Judge is out. Team batting average, 217. Last in baseball. Gross. On base percentage, 284. Last in baseball. Gross. Slugging percentage, 385. 25th in baseball. Pretty gross. Not great. OPS, 670. 28th in baseball, better than only the Toronto Blue Jays and the Seattle Mariners, who are at 649, which is also gross, and we will have more on them later. If there is one saving grace for the Yankees, it's that in that time that Aaron Judge has been out, they have 81 home runs. And that's not bad. It's sixth in baseball. And here's the reality of baseball in the postseason: if you hit home runs, you usually win. And yes, it is true. The Yankees out homered. I'm not going to say it. They out homered a team in 2024 in a very important series, and they wound up losing it. But they've got 9 guys this year who have 10 plus home runs. Ben Rice is a top 3 MVP candidate. Now, what are the questions that the Yankees have beyond the scary offensive numbers they've put up that they've tried to remedy by getting Luis Garcia Jr. at the deadline, by getting Elliot Ramos? Jazz Chisholm has been a problem this year, and not the good kind of problem. He's been a mess. Cody Bellinger is out right now. He's swinging a bat. He's doing agility drills. The hope is that they'll have him back. But really, this is going to come down to pitching. And I look at the Yankees pitching right now, and I see something that could be great. I also see that Max Fried's allowed 1 home run in 81 and a third innings this season. I know he is very stingy at giving up home runs historically. It's part of what makes him great. There's still going to be regression there. And most of all, I think, and Joel Sherman pointed this out, and I think it's fair, I do worry about the Yankees bullpen. Not because of its effectiveness, because it's actually been very good this year, but because Aaron Boone, their manager, has leaned on it heavily. Brett Hedrick leads Major League Baseball with 60 appearances. Fernando Cruz is 5th with 55. Tim Hill is 17th with 52. There is a lot of season left. And the Yankees need Clark Schmidt, who's coming back from an injury, and they need Carlos Rodon, who's going to come and piggyback, and they need to keep an eye on Ryan Weathers' innings, and maybe the same with Cam Schlittler too. And perhaps they get something from Luis Heel. There are a lot of possibilities here. Here's the reality, though, with the Yankees. Since the All-Star break, they are 12-10. They've done it against good teams too. The Yankees are a good baseball team. And remember, when it just comes to the playoffs, they have an 8-game lead over the Detroit Tigers, who are nipping at the heels of the 3rd wild card in the American League, the Texas Rangers, which leads me to our 3rd area of interest, and that would be the American League West. The American League West is the division that nobody wants to win. It is a division that is so close. We can't even say for sure who's in first place right now because we're taping this before Monday night's games. And as they go into it, the Houston Astros are 60 and 59, and the Texas Rangers are 59 and 59. Both of them, you will not be surprised by this, have negative run differentials. Everyone in the American League West has a negative run differential. If the American League is a wasteland, the West is the Sierra Madre Casino. It is the nightmare of all nightmares, the disaster of all disasters. And when we look at the teams, the Astros have Yordan Alvarez. And since the All-Star game, they have the best ERA in the division. They've scored the most runs in the division. That's been pretty consistent, actually. Since June 1st, most runs in the division. Their ERA is a little bit behind Seattle. And, the strength of the Astros right now might actually be their bullpen. Brian Abreu is back, it looks like, to being Brian Abreu. Josh Hader is Josh Hader. Bennett Sousa, Stephen Okert, they've been awesome this season. And it was just one time, but Tatsuya Amai throwing 3 brilliant innings out of the bullpen in his first turnaround there may give them a guy who can bridge between their starters, who are not, frankly, very good, and that bullpen, which is Carlos Correa, taking swings after ankle surgery, could get a shot in the arm there, and yet I can't sit here and say that I fully believe in the Astros when the Texas Rangers are around. And the Rangers, I'll give you a little insight here into what my life was like around the trade deadline. Being on top of the news, you have to try and hear all the juicy rumors that are out there and vet them and figure out, okay, is this real? About a week before the deadline, heard from a source, and he said, the Rangers are trading Corey Seager and Jacob deGrom. Like, if they lose this weekend, that's how crazy it was for the Rangers, that they were going day by day at the deadline to potentially completely upend their franchise, trade their 2 most expensive players. They tried with deGrom, actually, and they had something working with Atlanta, and then Jacob deGrom said, I have a no trade clause, and I have no desire to go there. And so deGrom stayed with the Rangers. Then they started losing, and they started losing some more. And it got pretty ugly there. They hadn't lost more than 4 in a row this season until the deadline. And on the day of the deadline, the Rangers lose 6 straight, drops them to 55 and 58, and they're looking dead. In the American League West, though, all you got to do is just win 4 straight games. And the Rangers did that, and they felt like they were right back in it. Jock Peterson's been good. Wyatt Langford's been good. Brandon Nimmo, Ezekiel Duran, even Justin Foscue. Seager's back from the injured list. Cody Bradford threw 4 1/3 scoreless innings in his first outing back from internal brace surgery. Jordan Montgomery is back at this point. The Rangers actually feel good about where they are. And I get it, because if their competition is the Astros and the Seattle Mariners, you might feel pretty good. And look, I don't want Richard Staff jumping in here. He's supposed to do that only when I mention the team that should not be mentioned. The New York Mets are the most disappointing team in baseball this year. The Seattle Mariners are giving them a good run for their money. They are 56 and 63. They are only 4 games better than the Mets. Since the beginning of the season, the Mariners have 462 runs, dead last in baseball. Since June 1st, the Mariners have 207 runs, dead last in baseball. There's some bad batted ball luck here, admittedly. They are last in all of baseball with 272 batting average on balls in play. Just for some context, the Pirates hitting 317 on balls in play this year, which it makes sense when they're scoring as many runs as they are, but it goes in the other direction too. And since 2012, when the Mariners last brought up the rear in scoring in baseball, the lowest scoring team has ranked 28th or worse in OPS plus. The Mariners right now are 20th, which by no means is very good. But they have a weighted runs created plus of 99. They're almost league average. So why can't they score? Well, they're not good on the base paths, but they're particularly not good in clutch situations. And the Mariners, with runners in scoring position this year, are batting 216. You want to talk about ugly. That is ugly. And I understand the BABIP gods are killing them there to a 247 BABIP with runners in scoring position, lowest in baseball. But particularly Cal Raleigh, Julio Rodriguez, Colt Emerson, a combined 195, 278, 315 in those situations, a combined 6 home runs, a combined 35% strikeout rate. When you have your boppers, especially Cal Raleigh and Julio Rodriguez, who are struggling in those situations, that is the recipe for a disaster. The worst division winner in history was the 2005 San Diego Padres at 82 and 80. The
Excuse me,
American,
you're getting a little close to you know who. I'm going to give a friendly suggestion. Move on.
fine, let's pivot to something good. The National League MVP race. And I'm going to start with Pete Crow Armstrong, who through May 29th, Pete Crow Armstrong was hitting 224, 314, 362. It wasn't very good. And there were questions, there were concerns about his consistency and about his ability to be a good bat day after day, week after week, month after month. Well, since May 30th, and I understand arbitrary endpoints and all, since May 30th, the day that Pete Crow Armstrong hit for the cycle, he has been utterly ridiculous. He has, according to Fangraphs, 6.5 wins above replacement over those 2 months and change. The next best is Dylan Dingler, the Tigers catcher, at 3.5. The next best after that, Yordan Alvarez at 2.8. And I understand this is a 10-week long heater. It is still absolutely obscene. During that time, 342 batting average, best in baseball. During that time, Pete Crow Armstrong, 20 home runs, second best in baseball, one behind Hunter Goodman. During that time, 449 on base percentage, second behind Yordan Alvarez, and a slugging percentage of 705, first by nearly 30 points, almost 100 points higher than Yordan Alvarez's. And when we look at his season-long offensive numbers, Pete Crow Armstrong, 287, 388, 545. Let's look at his best competition, 294, 398, 547. It's pretty much almost identical. And this is where the National League MVP race really gets interesting. Because not only is Pete Crow Armstrong hitting like an MVP, he is the best defensive center fielder in baseball. And he is one of the best base runners in all of baseball. And because the offensive numbers are a wash, this race is going to come down to whether the voters believe that what Pete Crow Armstrong does when he is not swinging the bat is worth more than what Shohei Ohtani
Wait
does.
a minute. Listen, I've tried to be nice to you and gently guide you. All right, I know you
What
have
was I supposed to do there? Ohtani is right there with PCA, and this is a good story, and it's interesting. How do I avoid the Dodgers in this situation, Richard? How? Tell me, please.
You avoid it very easily. You just don't touch it. You say PCA is going to win the MVP, and you quickly move on. And I know there are financial incentives for you. Your Matthew Lesko suits and your Son of Mask hair won't pay for themselves, and the Dodgers do it for you. But you just got to move on.
Let's go suits. Good God. You know what? All right. I will move on. Pete Crow Armstrong, MVP favorite. You heard it here. Let's go to another award. National League Cy Young, and frankly, the American League Cy Young. And, especially the NL Cy Young, it feels like Jacob Mizorowski is running away with it. I just want to say And we'll get into whether that's right or wrong that he is as favored as he is. I just want to point out one thing, and that's that Jacob Mizorowski has thrown 133 innings this season. That is seventh in the National League. He is more than 30 innings behind the NL leader, Sandy Alcantara, and 16 and two-thirds innings behind Christopher Sanchez, who, according to Baseball Reference, actually has 1.5 more wins above replacement than Jacob Mizorowski does this season. And Baseball Reference accounts for innings far more than Fangraphs, which has Mizorowski on top of the leaderboard there. But is that enough? In the AL, we have what looks like an old-fashioned coin flip at this point. But again, Cam Schlittler has thrown 20 more innings than Dylan Cease this year. And it's true. Dylan Cease, like Jacob Mizorowski, punches out more hitters than Cam Schlittler does. He has also walked 21 more batters than Schlittler and hit 5 batters to Schlittler's 0. He has allowed almost as many base runners as Cam Schlittler in far fewer innings. And I get it. You limit home runs, you strike out a lot of guys. You're a very good pitcher. But I would just like to remember 2021 here. Corbin Burns won the Cy Young that year, and he was tremendous. He had a 2.43 ERA and 167 innings. His FIP was 1.63. He led Fangraphs in WAR, and he beat out Zach Wheeler, whose ERA was a quarter point higher, with 46 and a third more innings. Now, I know Baseball Reference isn't the be-all, end-all. I'm not saying that Christopher Sanchez deserves the Cy Young over Jacob Mizorowski. I think Miz has been that transcendent and unleashed that caliber of dominance this season to make him worthy of the award, even with the innings gap. Not only does Baseball Reference have Christopher Sanchez on top of him, so does Baseball Prospectus. And here's the reality. The average start in Major League Baseball right now is 5.09 innings. That is the lowest since 2021, which was the year after COVID, when teams were yanking guys early because they had fears over the shortened season and arm health. And all I'll say to the voters, and I am not going to be one of them, all I'll say to the voters is do not forget Zach Wheeler, the rightful winner of the 2021 National League Cy Young. And while we're on the subject of starting pitching, let's go to lucky contestant number 6, the Boston Red Sox, the most incredible team in baseball this year. The Red Sox were left for dead. And they were left for dead not just by the masses in Boston who were lamenting what this season was turning into. They were left for dead by some slick-haired, pasty-skinned jabron who wrote a piece that ran before the game on June 27th on ABC. So, hey, Jeff, you get to write something for national television. That's awesome. What should it say? Well, it said this: the Boston Red Sox are a mess. Mired in last place in the American League East, running out the worst offense in baseball on a nightly basis. The Red Sox have, over the course of the season's first 3 months, proven themselves particularly capable of one thing: infuriating a fan base that wondered how things went so wrong. Further, he continues, a quarter of the roster could be on the move before the August 3rd trade deadline. The breaking up of this team will almost be cathartic, an acknowledgement that despite some of the best pitching and fielding in baseball, scoring the fewest runs in the league is no recipe for success. That day, the Boston Red Sox won their 3rd consecutive game. They walked off the Yankees the day after that. They won a 5th straight the day after that. They lost a couple to the Nationals. And then what happened? Between July 3rd and August 7th, the Boston Red Sox won 27 of 30 games. They scored 180 runs during that time, the most in Major League Baseball. Wilson Contreras was tremendous. Ceddanne Rafaela was awesome. They got surprises. Andrew Monasterio, beautiful. Masataka Yoshida, resplendent. Jahmai Jones. Like when you're getting contributions from Jahmai Jones and when Caleb Turbin is turning into a top 10 hitter in baseball, which he's been for the last 2 months. And when you're getting production with runners in scoring position, like the entire team has been Pete Crow Armstrong. That's what they've been for the last month. The Red Sox with runners in scoring position are batting .323. They're slugging .529, just a little bit under what PCA is for the whole year. They have almost the same on-base percentage as PCA. And look, this is probably not sustainable. Okay, this is definitely not sustainable, right? But they are getting Adley Rutschman back this week, their big trade deadline acquisition. The hope is that they're going to get Curtis Mead back too, their other trade deadline acquisition. And I get the worries about sustainability with the Red Sox. They are a very good team that's about to get a very good defensive catcher. And not only were they scoring the most runs over that 27-3 stretch, they led MLB in ERA, and they led in FIP too, which suggests to me that, yeah, maybe there was some luck here, but not a whole lot. The truth is, the Red Sox are this good. And if they get Garrett Crochet back in any kind of role, that's just another arm in a barn that's full of them. And the Red Sox, were they part of our seventh topic today? We wouldn't even be having much of a conversation because they would be running away with the American League Central. And thank God for the American League West, because otherwise we would all be laughing at the American League Central. Right now, the Chicago White Sox, 2 seasons removed from a 121-loss catastrophe, are in first place. And since jumping into first place for good on the 4th of July, the White Sox have gone 15-14. And they have gained 4 games over the team they tied that day, the Cleveland Guardians, who were uncharacteristically aggressive at the trade deadline and proceeded afterward to lose 5 of 6 games, including a pair to the White Sox over the weekend. Another team that's in the mix, the Minnesota Twins, they got a little bit aggressive at the deadline. They added, and they are 2-6 in August and have been walked off 3 times. And all the while the Red Sox tread water, while the Guardians fade back, and while the Twins wonder if they were even worthy of that light ad, here come the Detroit Tigers. Not only have they climbed into second place in the Central at 58-60, they have the best run differential in the American League. Better than the Rays, better than the Yankees, better than the Red Sox, not the best in the American League Central, the best in the entire American League. And oh, by the way, in August, they have a 1.90 ERA, which is the best in the big leagues, thanks to Troy Melton being impossible to score on. And I don't care that he's got a 94% strand rate and a sub-200 BABIP, or that he's bound to regress. He has been exactly what the Tigers have needed this season. And they also just added Jackson Jobe, and I'm not sure if you saw this, but fastball was sitting 98, and the slider and the curve and the change were all plus pitches, and he absolutely carved the Giants for 5 innings. And yes, it is the Giants, but that kind of stuff would play against Giants with a lowercase g too. And now you've got Max Clark up, and Kevin McGonigal is still raking, and Dylan Dingler is going to be a top 3 MVP. And it is a very realistic possibility that the Detroit Tigers make a playoff run this season, either in the Central or for an American League wild card spot. And the fact that we are talking about that at all, barely a week from them sending Casey Mize to the Padres and Tarek Skubal to the team I'm not supposed to talk about. But how could I avoid it? Because the Tigers might be in the playoffs and the Dodgers have Tarek Skubal.
All right, listen. I've tried to be nice. I've tried to sort of talk you through this in a way that maybe I'd get through to you. And I know it usually works doing what you do. You show up looking like Don Draper's going to embarrass you at the Lucky Strike meeting, and you talk about the Dodgers. It works. But we're not doing that here. All right, we've heard the feedback. We're moving on. National League wildcard is where we're heading next.
All right. NL wild card. It's actually really interesting, and they're interesting teams. And I want to talk about the Cubs first. They're at the top of the wild card standings right now. I think they have a pretty firm grip on it. They have a run differential over 100. Pete Crow Armstrong at the top certainly helps, but I love this lineup. Everyone is solid. Everyone is dangerous. Cubs position players by Fangraphs wins above replacement have 26.4 wins this season. The next best group of position players from any team is the Dodgers at 21 WAR, followed by the Nationals at 20.1. And the top team in the American League is the Yankees at 17.7. Essentially, the Cubs position players are nearly 10 wins better than the American League's best. And when you add Kevin Gossman and Clay Holmes at the trade deadline, and you put Ryan Zefferjon and his big arm in the bullpen, and I get that the Cubs don't have a Jacob Mizorowski, they don't have a Chris Sale in their rotation, that's fine. They are going to be a relentless out this postseason because they play clean baseball and they can score. And with Daniel Palencia and Edward Cabrera both on rehab assignments, and Hunter Harvey and Justin Steele both throwing, and of all people, Shelby Miller looking excellent just 10 months after UCL and flexor surgery, the Cubs could actually have an infusion of live arms. And if they get Ben Brown back too, look out, because rosters expand from 26 to 28 on September 1st. So the Cubs are going to have another spot to work with. You can carry 14 pitchers. They might cobble together a team that could push the National League, let's say. San Diego Padres, they sort of feel the same way. They don't have the defense the Cubs do. The Cubs catch the ball better than anyone in baseball. But since the All-Star break, the Padres have the best batting average and on-base percentage in baseball. Jackson Merrill looks like a star again. Fernando Tatis Jr. lifting the ball again. And because A.J. Preller went all A.J. Preller at the deadline and got Robbie Ray and giving up Yaniel Hernandez, by the way, that San Francisco did really well to get him. They got Casey Mize, too, the Padres did, and they still have their super pen, Mason Miller, Adrian Morejon. Bradley Rodriguez has been awesome this year, and also he's named Bradley, which is tremendous. Jeremiah Estrada, Yuki Matsui, David Morgan's going to be back. It's the kind of pen that makes their rotation palatable. And look, Randy Vasquez has been pitching well, and Michael King is a dude. And if they can get one, not even looking for both at this point, if they can get one of Joe Musgrove and Nick Pivetta back, suddenly the Padres are the kind of team you do not want to play in the postseason. We've seen what they can do. We've seen who they can beat in 2022. We've seen the levels that the Padres can reach. The Philadelphia Phillies being involved here, I almost feel like we should be talking about them at the top of the National League East, and yet here they are, and it's going to come down to three things with the Phillies. Can they hit? Can their bullpen hold up? And can their defense stabilize to back a starting rotation with Christopher Sanchez, Zach Wheeler, and Jesus Luzardo? And look, I don't know. I see since the trade deadline that Bryson Stott has gone almost 30 plate appearances without striking out. And Luis Arraez is doing his Luis Arraez things. And the Phillies, oddly, have the second lowest strikeout rate in baseball since the deadline. And I understand it's a minuscule sample, but for a team that was 24th in strikeout rate this season, makes me wonder, are, are we seeing a new kind of Phillies? I wonder with the great, we'll call it the great repositioning with everybody seemingly moving on the Phillies, whether the gloves can hold up. We saw a couple years ago, we referenced this World Series already. Yankees weren't very good defensively in 2024. That can doom a team. And while I do trust Joan Duran and Brooks Raley, Ryan Kerkering has been shaky. I have no idea what kind of Jose Alvarado I'm going to get every time he's out on the mound. And Caleb Killian needs to be the guy he was in San Francisco, not the guy that we've seen at the beginning of his time in Philadelphia for the Phillies to get one of these spots. And we've mentioned three teams already. We have a fourth entrant, one that actually holds one of the spots right now in the Arizona Diamondbacks. And even with their two best players, Corbin Carroll and Ketel Marte, really struggling since the All-Star break, the Diamondbacks have managed to score runs. And even with Corbin Burns and Zach Allen and Ryan Nelson out, the Diamondbacks have managed to pitch pretty well. They're adding Michael Soroka. Justin Martinez, flame-throwing back-end relief arm, is on a rehab assignment right now. The Diamondbacks have sort of been treading water, and that's been enough to keep other teams at bay and to put themselves in the position that they are right now. You know, we've got the Marlins sticking around, even after trading Liam Hicks and Lake Balker, as well as Braxton Garrett. They had the depth to backfill it. And if not for a 12-game losing streak, the Marlins would be not just firmly in the mix here, they would be holding one of those spots. They're going to be dangerous still. The Cardinals, I don't want to count them out, but I don't think that's it. I don't think this is the Cardinals' year. It's not intended to be. They were sellers at the deadline, getting rid of Dustin May and JoJo Romero. If I'm looking at the NL Central, I cannot give up on the Pittsburgh Pirates, and maybe I am the fool here. Maybe I look at the runs scored that they've had this year, the way that the offense has absolutely broken out, and that they're going to be getting Connor Griffin back and adding O'Neill Cruz too. Maybe I look at the fact that they brought on four relievers at the deadline, including the best one who was traded in Luke Weaver. And I look at a rotation that throws the ball harder than any team in baseball. Pittsburgh Pirates average fastball velocity from its starters over 97 miles per hour. And yet they stink right now. And I can't reconcile that. And so I'm just throwing this out there. If there is a dark horse for the wild card in the National League, it is the team that I cannot quit. It is the Pittsburgh Pirates, who are going to be brought up, I think, a fair amount as a team that should have been spending for a while and finally started spending this year a little bit more. And lo and behold, look at that. They're in the playoff mix. And I understand the collective bargaining agreement expires December 1st. So all of the labor talk between now and the end of the season, it's really just going to be rhetoric. We're in the dead zone at this point. The waiting game has arrived and nothing substantive is really happening. There's small scale proposals that are being traded back and forth, but really everyone's looking at the standings right now because in this battle for hearts and minds, both sides will happily leverage the current standings to try and reinforce their points. And when it comes to competitive balance, there's a lot of it. About 40% of the teams in MLB sold or soft sold at the deadline. And of those, the Tigers, the Blue Jays, the Orioles, the Nationals, the Cardinals, the Marlins, they're all within striking distance for a playoff spot still. And if the threshold being judged by fans in labor is postseason opportunity, the 2026 season has been a bonanza for competitive balance. And look, we got about 40 games left. We got about a quarter of the season. And maybe the standings separate naturally. But if they don't, this is as competitively balanced a regular season as one could hope for in any system, let alone one that, as the players say, restricts them from earning their rightful pay. And yet, remember that point earlier in the year when so many small markets were in playoff spots? Well, if the postseason started today, it would include Tampa Bay, Milwaukee, and the numbers 1, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 10, 13, and 14 payrolls. The lowest actually is the Chicago White Sox at 27th in payroll. But point being, 9 of the 12 playoff teams right now would be in the top half in payroll. And I do want to point out the payroll disparity because facts matter. And if Rob Manfred is going to parade around talking about the gap, we probably should have the most up to date numbers. Now, these do not come from the league. I'm using numbers from Ethan Houlihan, who does an awesome job and the most accurate of projecting what payroll numbers are going to look like, usually within 1% by the end of the season. He does an incredible job. And I've taken his LRD numbers. So LRD is Labor Relations Department. It's essentially the raw amount of cash that's being paid to players, that's being paid into benefits, that just the money out the door that players are benefiting from. I'm also adding them to Ethan's calculations of projected luxury tax bills. And we're going to start at the bottom with a team that is definitely not a luxury tax payer. The Cleveland Guardians have the 30th payroll this year at $75.5 million. Ugh. I'll just move on from that. The Marlins, again, like the Guardians, in the mix for a playoff spot, $82.4 million. The Nationals, who have a prayer, but probably not the pitching to do it, $89 million. Again, both contenders. And then you put the White Sox at 27th with a $96.9 million payroll. Suddenly you've got 4 teams that are in playoff contention that have the lowest payrolls in baseball. Let's go to the top, though. There are 9 luxury taxpayers this year, starting with the Red Sox, who the way payroll works is the luxury tax is based on the sum of the average of salaries that teams are paying players. So, for example, let's say that Garrett Crochet has an average salary of $30 million, but he's being paid only $20 million this year. That difference is accounted for when it comes to paying the luxury tax. And the Red Sox are payors this year, even though their total outlay for payroll is $212 million. Next, we've got the Padres, the Astros, the Cubs, and the Braves. Braves are at $264 million. Then the next big jump happens, goes to the 5th highest payroll, the Toronto Blue Jays, $310 million. Another monster jump to the Phillies, $352 million. Then there are the Yankees at 385. The Mets are second at a wild $462 million for that team for that season. If we want to give the oof of the week, New York Mets, oof. But we end up with the number 1 team at $515.7 million. As much as I tried to avoid them, one cannot stop talking about the Los Angeles Dodgers when it comes to payroll.
I have tried to be nice. I've tried talking to you nicely. I've tried sort of guiding you in the right direction. It's not working. I have a knife. So what I'm going to tell you now is that you're not going to mention them again, or this show's going off air.
What kind of knife? What kind of knife is that?
Oh, you're going to find out.
No, I'd like to actually see it. Is that like a sad Swiss Army knife?
You bet it is. You're going to get it. If you mention that team again, you're going to get it. And this show's going off the air.
The show's going off the air? Okay.
It's going off the air.
All right. I'm not sure that we're allowed to threaten somebody else with a knife on the air. So We're just, you know what? We're just going to move on. We're going to go to our World Series pick. And we can start in the American League because there are contenders. I know I wasn't nice to the Seattle Mariners earlier. I don't know why I'm mentioning them still. Maybe it's because their pitching really is it's really quite good and should be better than it is and could be better than it is. And they added Taylor Ward at the deadline. I want to believe in the Mariners because I think if they can take back the American League West, like frankly they should, that they will be a difficult out in the playoffs. Look, the Astros have been there and done that. They could be dangerous. The White Sox, despite little slide lately, they have good vibes. But truth is, this is focused on the American League East. We've talked about the Yankees. We've talked about the Red Sox. We have not talked about the Tampa Bay Rays. And I don't think they're getting nearly enough love. And not just because they have the best record in the AL. Let's start with the core. You know, the show is a big fan of Junior Caminero. And when he and Yandy Diaz and Jonathan Aranda are hot, they have been very good. But they just added Liam Hicks at the deadline. He's been with the Rays for a week, still hasn't struck out. Chandler Simpson is fully embracing his get the ball in play and just run faster than the throw, and is on pace to have more infield hits than we've seen in well over a decade. And oh, by the way, the pitching for the Rays is really good. Nick Martinez, Drew Rasmussen, Shane McClanahan, don't worry, he's on the injured list right now. Just taking a little pause, taking a little break, getting healthy for the stretch run and his first full season back after not pitching for 2 years. And beyond that, the Rays have a good bullpen too. Manny Rodriguez hitting 99 in his rehab outings. You add him to a pen that's got Brian Baker, that's got Kevin Kelly, that's got good matchup abilities there. The Rays can play, and where they can really play is defense. You catch the ball better than anybody in the American League. You've got contact. You've got pitching. You've got gloves. I know that the Rays don't have a ton of thump. And I worry about that lineup. I worry about the depth, but we are in a down American League right now. And as great as the Red Sox have been, and as terrifying as the New York Yankees look, if Aaron Judge comes back, as of this moment, I think the Tampa Bay Rays are going to win the American League pennant. And then in the National League, as much as I like the Brewers, and I do like them a lot, and I do think that the Brewers winning would be great for baseball, just to show that a team from the Midwest, a team from a small market, a team that does everything right, and a team that doesn't feel like it can go out and give up the sorts of players that it needs to at the deadline to go and capture the big left-handed arm, so to speak. I would love to see a team like that win, because I think for the first time in franchise history, the Milwaukee Brewers winning a World Series would be great for baseball. And as much as I like the Atlanta Braves and that lineup with Matt Olson doing what he's doing, and with Michael Harris having a great year, and with a scary bullpen, and with Chris Sale at the front of the rotation, the Braves can do damage. And you heard me wax poetic about the Cubs earlier. I think the Cubs are a fun team to watch. I think they're a well-rounded team, and the kind of team that could go deep into the playoffs. And maybe if they go on a heater and their pitching is as good as it can be, Cubs have a shot too. But at the end of the day, as much as I have tried not to say this throughout this entire show, as much as I have been reprimanded, I have been held at knife point on television, never thought that would happen. But I have to go where my heart is. And my heart says that the team that's going to win the National League this year is the Los Angeles